Welcome back, everyone. So today I'm going to touch on neutral density filters. I think people simply don't understand their use cases and therefore either don't understand how to use them or don't know that they could get some really nice results using them. So we'll talk about that after we watch a location video where I actually use a neutral density filter to shoot a beautiful lighthouse near my home here. All right, let's talk about it when we get back. All right, today's pretty simple. I'm going to show you how to make that water look like smoke and how to smooth it all and transport you to another world through the use of ND filters. ND stands for neutral density. And what that means is it darkens down your image without changing the color or the tonality of the image. So we're going to set up, we're going to get the lighthouse, we're going to hopefully have all these rocks looking like they have a layer of smoke on them. We're probably going to use a 10-stop ND on this because I want to get all of the ways, I want to get all of the movement. So I want an exposure that's going to be like 25, maybe even 30 seconds. So we're out here with the Zf. I'm shooting the ultralight landscape rig. I've introduced another lens into the rig. And that lens is the new Viltrox 20mm 2.8. That lens is amazing. I know I'm about 4 months late to the game on this because everybody was reviewing that in the past, but I plan on doing a review of it for astro photography also as well. So let's go ahead and get set up, and I'll walk you through how to make this happen. What I'm going to use is, you'll see here, I'm going to use the full 10 stop, which is not this one. Wait, I've got my hands mixed up here. This is 64, this must be the 10 stop. You'll see this is an ND filter that is 10 stops, so you can't see anything really through it. It'll require a very long exposure time. So I'll put that on the lens just to begin with. We're going to come back and pull it off while we get our exposure times in a minute. So there's a couple of ways you can go about this. Many of today's cameras will actually meter through a 10 stop. And then Bob's your uncle. You just set it up and you experiment a couple of times, and you get an idea of where you're at from there. There's also charts you can use. I know looking at it that it's 1/60th. So at 1/60th, I add 10 stops to that, or I use the chart, or I just let the camera try to meter through it. Let's see what happens if I let the camera to meter through it. Actually, this camera meters fine through it, so the ZF will meter through a 10 stop without a problem. So I'm looking at 13 seconds. I'm gonna go with 15 seconds, because it looks like I won't lose my highlights, but I'll get a nice long exposure. So let's see what happens with that. We'll get that started. Remember, with the wind, things are going to move. So take things like this bag off the bottom of the tripod, because it'll move the tripod ever so slightly back and forth, and that'll show up in the shot. You're going to be very, very careful not to get any vibration at all. So since it's a little windy out here, I'm keeping my hand on the tripod but not moving, and we'll find out if that worked.
What you probably noticed is that I made the exposure at 120 seconds. The initial exposure just wasn't long enough, so I decided to stack a 10 stop and a 6 stop filter together, and that equaled out to 120 seconds. I like this image overall, and I think the smoked out water really contributes to an overall strong composition, with a strong sense of the surreal.
Well, that's about it for today. Thanks for watching.
Wasn't that a beautiful day? But man, was it cold. You saw I put my gloves back on, and it was just, I had my hood on for part of it. It was just really cold. So let's talk about what neutral density filters can actually be used for. The first thing that comes to mind if you've ever shot video and need to be in control of the light is ND filters. They allow you to either shoot wide open, so you can get a nice smooth out of focus background, or bokeh, or they let you shoot at reasonable apertures at motion picture like frame rates. So 24 frames per second, f2, in bright light, you need 1/50th of a second shutter speed to maintain cinematic feel. Putting an ND on will allow you to have those shutter speeds while maintaining an f2 aperture. I always use a neutral density filter on my location camera that I shoot all the location videos on, because I need to have really fine control, and sometimes it's really, really bright, but I don't want to crank my aperture way, way up because it starts to get a little bit blurry. So I use a neutral density filter, adjustable neutral density filter on that camera, so I can really do fine control of the exposure. It allows me to really dial in minute changes to the scene as I look at the histogram, so that I can have consistent exposure across all of my video clips, which makes it much easier to edit my videos. So that's the video use case. Most of you absolutely don't care about that, and I get that, but I wanted to mention it. The second use case steps into stills photography. ND filters allow you to shoot at really wide apertures, no matter how bright the scene. It allows extremely bright scenes or scenarios such as at the beach. Let's say you're shooting a portrait of your significant other with bright sunlight. It allows you to have a really nice out-of-focus background. You can keep it at f2, f2.8, and still have a practical shutter speed that your camera can do. And you can make beautiful, beautiful bright light portraits like that. It also applies to studio work, where you might want to light brightly enough to be in real control of your strobes, but then your camera sync speed, most cameras top out normally, unless you go into super high sync speed, which is a weird thing we won't talk about, at 2/50th. Some cameras only go to 1/60th to control the strobes in the studio. So then you definitely need an ND if you want to shoot at anything less than like f11, f16. You want to get that background out of focus, or you want to hit the sharpest part of your lens, which is usually around f8. You're going to need an ND to sync with your strobes. All right, so all of this said, it may sound all like Greek to you, forgive me, but some of you are on board with what I'm talking about, and this was an important use of ND filters. I mean, many people like a lot of bokeh in their scenes, and when you have a bright scene and you want to have a lot of bokeh, you need ND filters. Simple as that. The final use, other than special situation photography, such as like sun photography or eclipse photography, is using ND filters to smooth out movement in a scene. Take, for example, a waterfall. Yes, you can shoot it with water moving, but in daylight, you'll likely still have like defined texture to the water, and while trying to maintain optimal sharpness at f-stops like f8, f11, you're going to see clearly like bubbles and splashes and things like that. So the trick here is to use an ND filter to pad down the light so that you can stay at f8, f11 and still have a second long shutter, or even a 2-second long shutter if it's fast or slow moving water, that smooths out the water and can contribute to the effect of it looking somewhat smoky or hazy. And so with a waterfall, it'll look like smoky, hazy movement, whereas with the ocean, like you saw in the video I shot today, it'll take those waves and just smooth them out into what looks like a layer of fog on the ground almost. So when using ND filters for smoothing out movement, you'll need to do some calculations, you'll need to use a chart, you can experiment, or you can use an app, which is what I like to do. I like the Nisi app, N-I-S-I, they're a filter manufacturer, because it also has a timer in it that allows you to easily set it to your metered shutter speed, and it calculates the shutter speed needed depending on your filter, and you set that, whether it's a 6-stop, a 10-stop, a 16-stop, etc. Then it has a timer button you hit, and voila, it counts down for you, so you can just set your shutter on the camera to bulb, open the shutter when the timer starts, close the timer when the shutter's up. Now, you may ask, what do I do with the f-stop? Well, the f-stop can be set to whatever you'd like. That has no effect on the ND filter, save for changing how long or short your base shutter speed is before applying the ND calculations to it. One other thing to remember is that, as I said, many cameras won't meter through a 10-stop. That's true for some older cameras. Yours may or may not, but the other thing stopping a camera that can meter through it is the fact that many cameras only allow exposures up to 30 seconds. So, if you have a camera that stops at 30 seconds and you need to meter 120 seconds, you'll need to use the bulb setting on the camera and use a timer. As I said, the timer's built into the apps to count down how long you leave it open. It's built into the Nisi app. I don't know about other apps. I've been using the Nisi app because I used to be a Nisi filter devotee. So, your mileage may vary. Finally, let's talk briefly about the solar eclipse, and then what to do with that filter when it's all said and done. What does the Eclipse filter have to do with the ND filters, you might ask? Well, that filter is a ND filter. It's a 16 or a 20-stop ND filter. These filters will give you very long exposures, and you can use them just like we used our standard ND filters. If you'll recall in my video, I actually, if you read the thing at the bottom, for that shot, that second shot, I actually used a 10-stop and a 6-stop that I stacked up. And that gave me a 120-second exposure. Well, the filter I'm going to use for shooting the Eclipse in a couple of days is a 16-stop filter, which is exactly 10 and 16, right? So I could have used that to get the same effect I got from shooting the lighthouse with the rocks. All right. So some solar filters are going to have a slight color shift to them. In most cases, this can easily be corrected in Lightroom or Photoshop. So the good news is that solar filter is not a one-shot filter, a waste of money after all. It can be used, yes, for shooting the sun, but it can also be used for just doing standard ND filter photography. All right. As for setting up and using an ND that I bought for the Eclipse, I'm not really going to try to explain what I know, as I'm still fairly new to this too. I used a welding mask filter. Over my lens last time and didn't really get great results. I mean, I got okay results. They weren't very sharp. So this will be my first time working to try to really get it right. I'll be attempting a close-up, of course, and I'll be using this setup. This is my Z8 with the 100 to 400 lens, the one lens to rule them all, if you'll recall. And as you can see, I already have the filter on here because I've been, here, see if I can get a glare. There it goes. You see the color of it. It's got a real heavy-duty coating on it. I have it all set up to practice with. People say you need a 600 millimeter generally to get like a decent size, but since it's a 45 megapixel sensor, I can just crop it down and it'll be just fine. But I'll be using this to get the close-ups. I'll be setting up my Fujifilm X-T5, and I'll be setting that up to shoot the long landscape with the multiple shots of the sun across the sky. Hopefully that comes out. And I'll be taking a couple other cameras. You know, I have a few tripods, so I'm just going to set up a bunch of cameras and take different kinds of shots. I'll probably be using the Fujifilm X-T2, and I thought I might even take a film camera and see what I can pull off with that. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I could set up the Hasselblad, right, and sit out there and shoot off the 12 exposures and time it. Shoot them off at exactly the right time for each one, and then composite that as a nice black and white solar eclipse image. So we'll see. I mean, it's going to be fun to figure out how to do this. I haven't practiced a lot ahead of time. I've just been busy, and then we were without power, and then, right? Life gets in the way. I can't wait to take you along on the eclipse thing. And I forgot to tell you, I have decided not to do totality. I know everybody's been telling me I need to do a totality. I think in 20 years, if I look back and say, oh, wow, I traveled to the middle of Maine by myself to shoot an eclipse and make a YouTube video, I'm probably not going to be that excited about it. But if I shoot it right here on the cove in front of my house and get almost totality, it's going to be very close. You know, it's going to be not totality, but it's going to be close. And no, it won't be as good, and I won't get the corona of the sun, but I'll have a memory that I did this at my new place in Maine and had a really just wonderful time. And my wife will be with me. My wife, I can't talk today. My wife will be with me, and she says she's going to come over and help out. She probably won't be there for the full 3 hours, but she'll pop over and check out what's going on. So anyway, I hope you guys have a really wonderful eclipse on Monday. And if you're not shooting it, no big deal. Don't beat yourself up. I kicked around the idea of not shooting it at all. I kicked around the idea of going to Vermont to my father-in-law's house where he's getting totality, but the weather under totality up here looks like it could be clear or could be cloudy or could be something in between. I just don't want to deal with it. And like I said, I want the memory of doing it here at home. So, God, this video just droned on today, didn't it? And I couldn't talk. Man, do you know how many takes went into this video? Anyway, get out there, make photography, flex your photo muscle, shoot the eclipse. Goodness gracious, it's totally worth just getting out and doing it. And as Gordon Lang, by the way, if you want to see a really good video on how to do this, go watch the Gordon Lang video. Lange? Is that how he spells his name? Gordon Lang's fantastic, and he's a old hand at shooting eclipses. He's done 4 of them, I think. This will be his 4th one, actually. And he will explain to you exactly how to go about setting up and doing this and how to practice and make sure that you don't have any mistakes. But what he says, and I think is absolutely the truth, is if something goes wrong with your camera, stop trying to figure it out. Just stop. You're not going to get the photograph. Enjoy the eclipse. Sit back and watch the eclipse. Oh, and I don't have them sitting here, but don't forget, if you're going to watch it, bare eyes, make sure you put eclipse glasses on and make sure they're real, safe eclipse glasses. I'm not sure I'd look through these to look at an eclipse. I don't think the UV protection is here. It's fine for your camera, but it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be fine for your eyes. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you had a great week. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you have a great eclipse. And I hope to see you again next week. Oh, hey, listen. If you want to buy me a coffee, there's a new thing. You can thank me. It's a super thanks at the bottom. And I would really appreciate it. Buy me a coffee for the work I do. And I hope you found this useful. And only buy me a coffee if you found this useful. Don't pity me. Anyway, if you found this useful, hit the thumbs up, buy me a coffee. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, set the notification bell. Have a great week, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks again, guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.